The prince leaned in closer, his long hair falling like a silken curtain around them, isolating them from the world outside. He didn't care that the court was waiting. He didn't care that Lady Meilin was likely spinning a web of vengeance at that very moment. He lowered his head, pressing his forehead against Si Hua's. "You tried to run away," he breathed, his eyes narrowing. "You thought another man could take you from me? Look at me, Si Hua. Look at what you have done to your prince." Si Hua looked. He saw the madness, the deadly obsession, and the strange, twisted devotion in the prince's eyes. For the first time, he realized that he wasn't just a captive of the palace. He was the anchor for the prince's sanity. Yet, he was very dangerous. Dangerous for both of them. Si Hua realized his determination to protect his family, to try to escape the trouble of the palace, was far from being over, and the realization hit hard. Never in his wildest dreams had he thought of being taken by a fellow man. It robbed his dignity as a man. There must be a way out, Si Hua thought. He'd grow bored of him. He'd devise a plan to escape with his family. He only had to wait for the right chance and time. The crown prince rose from the bed with a predator's grace, his movements unburdened by the exhaustion that pinned Si Hua to the mattress. Without a word of comfort, he cast a final, possessive look at the scholar before striding into the dressing alcove. Behind the translucent golden screens, a dozen servants waited in terrifying silence. The muffled sounds of the prince's morning ritual echoed through the chamber. The splashing of rose water, the rhythmic brushing of his long black hair, and the rustle of heavy imperial silk as they draped him in his ceremonial black and gold robes. He was no longer the feverish man of the night. He was the future emperor, cold and untouchable. Once the prince departed for the morning assembly, the heavy iron-bolted doors creaked open. The heavy scent of dragon's brain incense lingered in the air, thick enough to coat the biak of Si Hua's throat. As the prince's footsteps finally vanished, the silence of the chamber didn't feel like peace. It felt like a vacuum. Si Hua lay amongst the tangled ruins of gold-threaded silk, his hair spreading across the pillow like spilled ink. He felt a terrible, hollow coldness where the prince's heat had just been. Every breath was a shallow struggle. His body felt like a porcelain vase that had been shattered and glued together by a clumsy hand. Suddenly, the heavy doors burst open. The sound was like a thunderclap. The head eunuch rushed in, his face a pale, wrinkled mask of efficiency. "Hurry! The water! The medicinal oils!" he barked at the younger servants. They swarmed the room like a flock of frightened birds, their silk slippers scuffing against the polished floor. One servant pulled back the heavy bed curtains, and the morning sun struck the bed like a blade. The eunuch froze for a heartbeat, his eyes falling on the stark, crimson blossoms staining the white silk sheets, a silent, visceral map of Si Hua's agony. He shook his head, a flicker of useless pity in his eyes, before his face hardened back into stone. "Clean it," the eunuch whispered, "before the scent of blood reaches the hall." Then, a cry broke the mechanical rhythm of the servants. "Leanne." He pushed past the guards, his face a wreckage of tears and bruised skin. He didn't care for protocol. He didn't care for the eunuch's glare. He threw himself toward the bed, his knees hitting the floor with a bone-jarring thud. "Young master!" Leanne's voice was a jagged sob. He reached out, his hands trembling violently as he took Si Hua's pale, limp hand. He pressed it to his forehead, his tears hot and wet against Si Hua's cold knuckles. "Forgive me. I was at the door. I heard you call, and they held me down. They held me down and laughed while you—" Leanne's grip was desperate, as if he were trying to pull Si Hua back from the edge of a cliff. The grief was so loud, so raw, that even the servants paused for a fleeting second. Si Hua looked down at his friend through a haze of pain. He saw the marks on Leanne's arms where the guards had restrained him. He saw the boy's spirit breaking right alongside his own. With a trembling finger, Si Hua traced the line of Ajie's jaw. "Leanne," he whispered, his voice sounding like dry silk. Don't let them see. In this palace, if they see your heart, they will find a way to pierce it." The heavy, sandalwood-scented air in the bedchamber felt like a physical weight pressing against Si Hua's chest. The morning sun, filtering through the intricate paper screens, carved sharp, geometric shadows across the floor, shadows that looked like the bars of a cage. The servants moved with a terrifying, ghost-like fluidity. One girl knelt to gather the blood-stained silks, her fingers trembling as she touched the evidence of the night's violence. The metallic scent of blood mingled with the bitter, herbal steam of the medicinal basin, creating a cloying aroma that made Si Hua's stomach churn. "Don't touch him," Leanne hissed at the head eunuch, who was reaching out with a damp cloth. Leanne's face was a mask of raw, bleeding grief. He shoved the servants aside, his own hands shaking so violently he had to grip his own wrists to steady them. He took the cloth, his touch infinitely more tender, and began to wipe the cold sweat from Si Hua's brow. "Young master," Leanne whispered, his voice cracking like dry parchment. "The mark, it's not just a bruise. It's glowing." Si Hua forced his heavy eyelids open. He leaned his head back against the carved dragonwood of the bedpost, catching his reflection in the polished bronze mirror. At the base of his throat, the royal chi seal pulsed with a rhythmic, sickly gold light. It looked like a living heartbeat trapped beneath his skin. The prince's heartbeat. "It's a tether," Si Hua murmured, his voice a ghost of its former scholar's clarity. He felt a sharp, electric thrum vibrate through his meridians, radiating from the mark down into his chest. "He hasn't just taken my freedom, Leanne. He has woven his energy into my very blood." Suddenly, the air in the room changed. The fine silk hangings of the bed shivered, though there was no wind. Leanne froze, but he could feel it, the sudden, suffocating pressure of an immense internal power approaching the courtyard. It was like the atmosphere before a lightning strike. Thud. The distant sound of the outer gate hitting the stone walls echoed through the palace. Step, step, step. The footsteps weren't heavy, but they carried a terrifying weight. With each step the prince took across the courtyard, the golden seal on Si Hua's neck flared with searing heat. Si Hua gasped, his hand flying to his throat, his body arching as the prince's chi reacted to his proximity. "He's here?" Si Hua choked out, his eyes wide with a mix of terror and a strange, forced physiological longing caused by the bond. "Hide the basin. Hide the blood. If he sees you weeping, he will think you are a weakness he needs to prune from my life." Leanne scrambled to his feet, frantically trying to straighten Si Hua's robes to hide the bruises, but his fingers were clumsy with fear. The shadow of a man appeared against the paper screens of the door, tall, broad-shouldered, and radiating a cold, golden authority. The bolt on the door didn't just slide. It shattered inward as the prince used a flick of his internal power to enter.